Many times in combat sports, judges are left to make close calls, which in a lot of cases upset the fans, and of course the fighter on the losing end. Such was the case in the fight between Paddy Pimblett and Jared Gordon, with the former going home with the controversial victory. However, Pimblett has confidently said that he knows he beat Jared Gordon. Keep watching this video to get the full scoop. What you need to know. With a controversial decision in his favor over Jared Gordon at UFC 282, Paddy Pimblett improved to 3-0 in 2022. Even though this fight wasn't the most thrilling we've ever witnessed, Pimblett was more than pleased to praise the contest in the post-fight news conference. When asked about complaints of the judgment, he replied, and I quote, "Opinions are like a-holes. Everyone's got one. Simple as that. I knew I won that fight. I deal in facts, lad, and it wasn't like it was a split decision. I won it. Look at both of our faces. Today, damage is used to score fights. I dealt a lot more harm. That's all." Pimblett also said, "He can take a punch. I was delivering some heavy blows to him, but he continued moving forward. Jared is a fantastic human being and a fantastic boxer. Pimblett could have done better, but he's still happy with the result." After the fight, Pimblett felt like he didn't grind as much as he might have in the third round, but he was still really thrilled to get some proper cage time. "I just completed my first 3 challenging rounds in the UFC against a tough opponent, so I'm feeling quite good right now," he said. "I could have exerted more effort in the third round, but I coasted a bit because I'm 2 rounds ahead, especially with the ankle injury." How did Pimblett cope with his ankle injury? Gordon's third-round wall install, according to Pimblett, really prevented him from having to use his ailing ankle. "In the third round, my ankle was pretty compromised," said Pimblett. "I was concerned about my ankle, so as a result, if he had continued striking with me, he would have had much more success because I was a little bit stuck in the mud with my mobility. He would have caught me more often because I couldn't move properly and my foot wasn't 100%. I said, yeah, let's relax, when he shoved me up against the cage." How good was Pimblett's year? Considering that this was the last UFC pay-per-view event of the year, Pimblett provided an evaluation of his performances in 2022. He said, "It's been a terrific year, 3-0, 2 victories. I recently completed a full 15 against a really strong opponent who consistently shows up to fight and has the stamina for that long. All that matters is that I was declared the winner by a unanimous vote. I've had a pretty great year, and long may it continue." Gordon reacts to controversial loss to Pimblett. There was no question in Jared Gordon's mind that he ought to have prevailed over Paddy Pimblett in the UFC 282 main event. MMA Decisions reports that all 3 judges awarded the victory to Pimblett, rating it 29-28 on all 3 judges' scorecards, despite the fact that a resounding majority of the media gave the fight to Gordon. Gordon took to Twitter after the fight and said, "I got robbed and everyone knows it. I can cry over it, but I've gone through the worst and I know that God's plan is the best plan. Therefore, I know something significant will result from it." So, how did the fight really go? Despite being a significant underdog going into Saturday night, Gordon dominated Pimblett throughout every round, but especially in the opening 10 minutes when he was landing some heavy blows on the highly skilled prospect from Liverpool, England. Gordon kept landing left hooks, and Pimblett, who had his chin up high and offered no resistance, took a lot of hits in the opening 2 rounds. In the third round, the action slowed down significantly as Gordon chose to press Pimblett against the cage and work from the clinch without any damage being done by either fighter. Nevertheless, Pimblett was given the win, which helped him to maintain his UFC perfect record. A year of terrible decisions. Pros react to Paddy Pimblett's win over Gordon. It's no longer news that Paddy Pimblett has won the closest match of his octagon career at UFC 282, maintaining his perfect record. The British fighter labored and went the distance against Jared Gordon for the first time since joining the promotion, and he managed to win the judges' unanimous decision. However, many professional fighters disagreed with the result on Twitter. Randy Brown tweeted, "When y'all going to realize Paddy can't fight?" Ataman Rafael Fiziev also tweeted, "I can think of at least 20 LW fighters who can finish Paddy." Paul Felder also claims that Jared won. Give him the fight. Most controversial judging decisions in MMA history. The fight between Paddy Pimblett and Jared Gordon isn't the only one to have ended on a controversial note, as there have been many other MMA fights that have ended in the same manner. There are several reasons for controversial outcomes that even the most dedicated MMA fans may not understand. How the bouts are scored is completely up to the judges, so in some cases, the fighter who you thought was outpunched might actually be the one to have his or her hand raised. Keep watching this video to check out some of the most controversial decisions in MMA history. 1. Evan Dunham vs. Sean Sherk. There have undoubtedly been worse rulings in the UFC's brief existence, but the crowd's response to Sean Sherk's victory over Evan Dunham at UFC 119 was unusually unfavorable. In reality, the two put on a captivating fight for the most part, but Dunham was largely responsible for its highlights. The 28-year-old frequently put together eye-catching combinations whenever he was able to gain some separation, injuring his opponent multiple times. The judges' high ratings of Sherk's wrestling may be the oddest aspect of this battle. The former lightweight champion did little other than pin his opponent against the cage and avoid several tight chokes, with the exception of an elbow that tore Dunham open in the first round. The fact that Sherk's post-fight interview interview was overshadowed by the live audience with a chorus of boos says it all. 2. Matt Hamill versus Michael Bisping. Many people use Michael Bisping's victory over Matt Hamill at UFC 75 in London as an egregious case of biased judging. But after just watching the battle again, I believe the choice now seems more logical than it did at first. It really comes down to how one performs in rounds 2 and 3. The first was undeniably Hamill's, as he attacked Bisping for the entire 5 minutes with the ferocity of a man possessed. The second round was much tighter though, as Bisping mounted his opponent and scored points from the outside while Hamill's pace slowed. It was particularly challenging to judge the final round. Positionally, Hamill dominated for most of the round, knocking the British fighter to the ground and holding him there for a substantial amount of the final stanza. However, Hamill started to lower his hands from exhaustion as Bisping scored heavily on the feet. Despite occurring in the Count's backyard, the live audience booed as the decision was announced. 3. Ian McCall versus Demetrius Johnson. The first flyweight match in UFC history took place at UFC Fight Night 2 between Demetrius Johnson and Ian McCall. The match was part of a 4-man tournament to determine who would become the first 125-pound champion for the promotion. The bout might have been fairly scored for either fighter. Therefore, the controversy didn't actually result from a poor judgment. It was caused by a significant tallying error that was eventually fixed. Johnson was initially given a majority decision victory, but officials later realized that the contest ought to have been a draw. Since the competition was a part of a tournament, a sudden victory round had been included in case the judges were unable to decide between the two after 3 rounds. The officials' failure to perform simple math calculations cost everyone a 4th round in a battle that was already exciting and high-paced. 4. Nick Diaz versus Carlos Condit. There isn't much to say about the fight for the interim welterweight championship at UFC 143 between Carlos Condit and Nick Diaz. The fervent support of the California native ensured that the fight would go down as one of the most contentious outcomes in UFC history. How much focus you give to aggression will probably affect how you fared in the fight. For 5 rounds, Diaz controlled the action, while Condit primarily produced his offense while being on his back foot. Statistics showed that Condit out-hit Diaz, although it's debatable whose strikes were more powerful. Condit's detractors contend that he engaged in point fighting and only moderately hurt Diaz. His fans contend that he and Greg Jackson developed a fantastic game plan and admirably adhered to it for 25 minutes. 5. Frankie Edgar versus BJ Penn. The lightweight title fight between BJ Penn and Frankie Edgar at UFC 112 was predicted to be a rout. The diminutive Edgar, who has so far presented a reliable but unspectacular challenge to Penn's throne, was not regarded as a serious contender. The fights were really tight. Edgar slipped in and out of range, scoring with combinations, while Penn chased and hit the harder strokes. Many people believed that Edgar was guilty of playing Penn, who was more aggressive merely for points. The fact that one judge awarded Edgar points in each and every round of the fight may have been the most contentious aspect of it. 6. Pedro Rizzo versus Randy Couture. One of the most entertaining championship fights in UFC history was Randy Couture versus Pedro Rizzo at UFC 31, but its appeal may be matched by the discussion it usually sparks. A large percentage of spectators gave the bout a low rating thanks to some contentious refereeing decisions, although it does have a lot of views on YouTube. How the fight is scored is subjective, with the exception of rounds 1 and 2, which the two definitely split. So guys, who do you think won the bout between Paddy Pimblett and Jared Gordon? Let us have your thoughts in the comments section. And if you enjoyed watching this video, kindly give it a like and share so your friends can watch it too. One more thing, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tap the notification bell to keep getting more interesting content like this. Thanks for watching.